हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
सुंदर देवी दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण।
जय श्री कृष्ण प्रभु जी, धन्यवाद प्रणाम।
शोधा मैया दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
दंडवत प्रणाम। प्रिय मोहिनी देवी।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, जय श्री प्रभुपाद। दंडवत प्रणाम।
दंडवत प्रणाम। ऋचा माता जी। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री शीला प्रभुपाद प्रभु जी।
दंडवत प्रणाम। राधा भवानी देवी। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
दंडवत प्रणाम। गौरी जीवनी देवी।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी। I forgot your name.
और प्रभु जी, आनंदनी प्रिया देवी दास प्रभु जी।
Many times I see the name from the screen, so I know. Okay, thank you.
Yes, प्रभु जी।
प्रभु जी दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी,
Sundan
दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
गीति देवी दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण। आनंद गिरि हरे प्रभु।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे प्रभु दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री
दंडवत प्रणाम
प्रभुपाद।
माता जी। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
देवान हरे प्रभु दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण।
जी दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
सर दंडवत प्रणाम। हरे कृष्ण। Okay, so we can begin now. Somagyantimivandhasya Nananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam, pangum langayate girim. Yat kripa tamaham bande, Shri Guru Dinatarinam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Okay, so we are reviewing the fourth chapter, Transcendental Knowledge about Krishna, the link between third and fourth chapter. We discussed last chapter, last section covers about Arjuna asked, what is stopping me from doing the right thing, even though I know this is a right thing and this is not a right thing, why I'm impelled? Lust only Arjuna. And Krishna says, the nature of this lust is it bewilders the living entity and covers the real knowledge, creates a kind of illusion, and it's all devouring. Whether it is, we discussed multiple aspects of it, whether it is such a simple thing as eating to like covers the real knowledge, or bewilders living entity, even such a simple thing, or attachment, or desires other than serving Krishna, overwhelmingly covered. So Krishna says one should defeat this message. He says one is by intelligence and knowledge. The real knowledge is covered, and that's where the chapter comes. What is real knowledge? How the knowledge becomes covered? How to uncover that knowledge? What is the process of gaining that knowledge? Knowledge award our intelligence the strength to overcome all lusty desires. Krishna says overcome by spiritual strength and knowledge, intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and spiritual intelligence comes by reading scriptures. And it's not just reading scriptures. Like today, Bhagavatam class, it's not just reading scriptures, it is basically the realization. And we cannot say we have transcendental knowledge if we know things, but we can say we have transcendental knowledge if we can act on those things. So knowing about Krishna consciousness and acting in Krishna consciousness are two different things. And one who is acting in Krishna consciousness is said to have assimilated the transcendental knowledge. And the process is mentioned in this 4th chapter. Then this is another verse from Bhagavad Gita. O Arjuna, with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit and free from lethargy, fight. So here Krishna explains, well, what is full knowledge about me? He says, well, you should fight in full knowledge of me, but how will Arjuna know full knowledge of Krishna unless Krishna reveals full knowledge to him? Again, this chapter comes as transcendental knowledge about Krishna. And this also motivates Sakama Karma Yoga to Nishkam Karma Yoga, because Sakama Karma Yoga is a bewildered living entities who has material desires, and he is doing whatever he is doing to fulfill his material desire. And Nishkama Karma Yoga is one who has realized transcendental knowledge and acting on transcendental knowledge and doing things for the pleasure of Krishna, for what things are meant to be done for. So motivates Nishkama Karma Yoga. Now chapter 4 emphasizes on what is transcendental knowledge and how it is received. Okay, breakdown of chapter 4. Give me one second. Okay, breakdown of chapter 4. First, there is transcendental knowledge about Krishna, where Krishna speaks about, which is a very, I'm sure everybody by hearted this section. This knowledge was spoken to Vivaswan, and then why Krishna comes. That is a knowledge about Krishna. Then how to apply the transcendental knowledge, we will see them in detail. Then understanding karma on the platform of jnana, we will see that. Then the sacrifices that lead to transcendental knowledge, and finally the conclusion. We will see them in detail. Now, transcendental knowledge about Krishna. Krishna is absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead who comes to the world to protect eternal dharma. One who knows this is factually liberated. So Krishna says, I gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, he gave it to Ikshvaku, Manu. It was going in disciplic succession. At some point of time, the knowledge was broken. And when the knowledge was broken, then the dharma loses its grip, because dharma is established on transcendental knowledge. Dharma loses its grip, and to establish dharma, Krishna comes again. Then Krishna says, who is qualified or qualification required to receive and understand the science of Bhagavad Gita? I mean, one can read Bhagavad Gita, but the mystery of Bhagavad Gita is we cannot understand by reading it. So we need, in order to understand Bhagavad Gita, we need to become qualified. They are similar to, qualification of a speaker and qualification of a listener. That comes in Bhagavatam also. In Bhagavad Gita, these are the 5 verses that speaks about qualification. Krishna says, you can understand the mystery of Bhagavad Gita because you are a devotee and a friend. Prabhupada explains a friend means, a devotee means any kind of relationship, a devotee and friend. Then one can receive transcendental knowledge by approaching a spiritual master. Then 439 explains one should be faithful and one should be willing to subdue his senses to be able to understand this knowledge. Because obviously lust covers the real knowledge and bewilders the living entity. So when a living entity is bewildered, how can one gain knowledge? And the demand of the senses is also influence of Kama, Isha, Krodha, Isha. Then Krishna says, 9th chapter, one should be non-envious. Gaining receiving is one thing. Acting on transcendental knowledge is a very advanced platform. We will see the concept of akarma, the symptoms of a devotee who is acting on this principle of akarma, and they are very advanced. But those who are non-envious, they can actually, they are the one who are actually who have assimilated this transcendental knowledge. Then Krishna says in 18th chapter, this knowledge should not be given to those who are not austere, who are not devoted, who are envious, and who are not engaged in devotional service. In other words, those who are engaged in bhakti yoga, austere, devoted, they can only assimilate this transcendental knowledge. This is a qualification. How to receive this knowledge. Then Arjuna's doubt, after saying, I give this knowledge to Vivaswan Ikshvaku, then how can Krishna, born a son of Devaki, just few years back, instruct Vivaswan, who is millions of years older? Krishna responds, my dear Arjuna, I am unborn and I appear by my own will. Everything about me is transcendental. It appears that I appear, that I have taken birth, but there is no birth for me. So I'm always there. You are also always there, but there is a difference that we will see the next slide. Then when Krishna comes, when there's a decline in religion and rise in irreligion, why? To annihilate demons, deliver the devotees. From Prabhupada says to reciprocate with the devotees who are feeling separation from Krishna, re-establish principles of religion. This everyone is aware, so going fast. Falastuti, Krishna says, one who understands about himself, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yogati tatvata, takta deham puna janma naiti mameti soarjuna. One who understands that Krishna is unborn, the mystery of Krishna's birth, the mystery of Krishna's activities. One who understands that everything about Krishna is transcendental, no birth. Then the difference between Krishna and conditioned living entity. What is the difference between Krishna and a jiva? It is described in this chapter in the two purports. Krishna is eternal, remembers past, present, future. He is infallible. Living entity is eternal, but he forgets. Krishna remembers. Krishna remembers all births because body does not change or deteriorate. Avyayam forgets because body changes and deteriorates. Krishna appears by his own will. Jiva is forced to appear by karma. Krishna's body is transcendental. Jiva body is material. For Krishna, there is no difference between body and self. Advaita. For the soul acquires an external body, gross and subtle. So somebody may ask, what is the difference between Jiva and Krishna? Now, that is the first section, begins with Krishna says, I gave this knowledge. It was coming down. It was broken. I have come to give you the knowledge again. And I'm giving you this knowledge because you are my devotee and a friend. Then Arjuna interrupts there. How can you give this knowledge to Vivaswan? Then he says, well, I am unborn, eternal. I come by my own will. And then he gets an answer to say why I appear. And those who know about this, know birth again. This is Falastuti. Now, someone may ask, so Arjuna, it's very attractive. The Falastuti, one will attain Krishna. There is no birth. Krishna says, Mameti so Arjuna, one will come to me. One will come to Golok Vrindavan. One who attains that, or one will attain Krishna Prema. So Arjuna, this is a hidden question according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is genius. So he gives the link between different verses. Then why not Krishna give love to everyone? He says, if anybody knows about me, Krishna Prema. And Mameti so Arjuna. No birth, come to me, Golokadham. Prem. So why not give love to everyone? Krishna says, well, I don't force my love to everyone. So he says, Viyathamam prapadyante. I reciprocate according to one's desire. Then why don't everyone want Krishna Prema? Okay. Krishna says, whatever they desire, I will give them. So then Arjuna, hidden question. Again, not coming here, but hidden question. Then Krishna, why don't everybody want Krishna Prema go to Golok Dham? Krishna says, well, they're less intelligent. They have material desires. They want to fulfill their material needs. They want to fulfill the demand of their senses. And so they worship demigods. So they don't worship me. So I give them through demigods what they want. Prabhupada says in the purport, boons of demigods are like bubbles in cosmic ocean. I mean, cosmic ocean is huge. Small bubbles, how many millions? So likewise, our desires or what we want from demigods. Give me wealth, give me beauty, give me power. It's like, like small bubbles in cosmic ocean. Everything ends with time. But the real knowledge of a living entity is covered, so they still desire. Prabhupada says, what is the madness of human society? People are mad after material things. Okay. Then Krishna says, how can such people become free from excessive attachment? Then Arjuna asked this question, again a hidden question. So these three words comes together in applying transcendental knowledge. First, anyone who knows gets Goloka Prema and he will come to my abode. Why not everyone comes? Arjuna says, Krishna says, well, they don't desire. I give what they want. Why don't they desire? Well, their intelligence is covered by material desires. So they worship demigods, they don't approach me. Madness of human society. Then Arjuna asked, well, if they are mad and they have so many material desires, how can these material desires be regulated? Then Krishna says, that's why one ashram dharma is there. Everyone is in different modes. There is mode of passion, mode of ignorance, mode of goodness. And based on the three modes, I have created Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Brahmana. If they act according to their modes, that will help them elevate. And that's why Prabhupada says, half of my service is done, which is Prema Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotional service. And he said, 50% of my work remains. And Prabhupada said, that is to establish Varna Ashram. Because Varna Ashram regulates sense gratification. Because those who are too excessively attached, they cannot access transcendental bhakti. It's very difficult because there are many desires. So the concept of pure bhakti and where one stands is very difficult generally. How many people can come to 16 rounds? So Arjuna is asking, what about excessive attachment? The madness of human society, what about them? Well, I have created one ashram. Krishna creates one ashram dharma so that people could purify themselves by regulating desires. And then in the last two verses in this section, Krishna explains, but I am not part of this one ashram, Arjuna. I am completely beyond. I am not a part of these three modes. I am transcendental. But this is all created because the people are mad after it. So, okay, your mode of passion, your mode of ignorance. Fulfill your desires in a regulated way. Don't engage in sinful activities. You can worship demigods and get these things, and because you're worshipping, something will purify you. Will gradually by the rules and regulations of scriptures. What does one ashram means? One ashram means they follow Vedic literature, but they act according to their varna. So based on different varnas, different pleasures are allowed. But you follow Vedic literature. But those who discard Vedic literature, they are not part of one ashram. They are Yavanas and Malechas and others. Okay, so this is the purpose. Then Krishna says, I am beyond it, I am transcendental. And one who knows this also becomes transcendental. Okay, so this is about the second section. Now, the third section is understanding karma on the platform of jnana. So once again, first section begins with Vivaswan. How can you give this knowledge? Arjuna, I am unborn. I come because of this reason. Anybody who knows gets Goloka Prema. Why not to everyone? Depends upon what they desire. Why don't they desire? Intelligence is stolen by material desires. If people are too much attached, then what have you done to show them the path? Well, I have created one ashram dharma for them. And then now Krishna explains, Arjuna, be very careful what you do in this world. So Arjuna previously said he wished, this is question from the first chapter. Arjuna previously said he wished to leave the battlefield and avoid the results of his karma, like a jnani through inactivity. One of the reasons Arjuna says, I don't want to fight because I will incur sinful reaction. So let me avoid fighting. This is where Krishna answers this question. No sinful reaction if I don't fight. Then Krishna explains the concept of karma and akarma. He says, not by not fighting, you don't get sinful reaction. So this principle is explained. Detailed, I mean, see, there are like 9 verses in this section, and most of the verses are on akarma. Krishna will show him that no karma accrues to one who works in transcendental knowledge. It's not that if you fight, you will incur sinful reaction, but if you fight in knowledge, then no reaction. And that properly performed karma can thus be seen as non-different from the process of jnana, because process of jnana is renounced, but process of karma in transcendental knowledge is true renunciation. There is true freedom from reaction. Hence, Krishna explains karma, vikarma, and akarma. Okay, here is a summary. The link, Arjuna didn't want to fight, because if he fights, he will incur sinful reaction, he will go to hell. So Krishna clarifies, well, if you fight, but you fight not for a selfish motive, but in knowledge for the pleasure of Krishna, then you will not incur sinful reaction. But if you neglect artificial renunciation, then you will actually get the sinful reaction for artificially renouncing your duty. Okay. It is said that then the question may be asked, like, people renounced order, they also renounced their duties. Won't they get sinful reaction? For Arjuna, he will incur sinful reaction because of running away from the battlefield and not fighting. Because of neglecting his duty, he will incur sinful reaction. But by fighting in knowledge of Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna, no sinful reaction. Then those who renounce life, will they incur sinful reaction? No. I mean, yes and no. If somebody renounces one's duties for serving Krishna, there is no reaction. But if one renounces one's duties because out of fear of sinful reaction, or because they're difficult to do, or any other reason other than only for serving Krishna, one is bound by sinful reaction. One lecture Maharaj says, if you renounce the word, you give up the duties to parents and forefathers and various other duties. There is no sinful reaction. But if you give up your service to Krishna, then whatever pain you have caused or whatever duties you have neglected, everything will come back to you. In other words, Arjuna was renouncing the battlefield out of fear of sinful reaction. That way he will be incriminated. But for him to fight with knowledge, no sinful reaction. Okay, then Krishna says 44.16 must follow liberated souls. Without following liberated souls, one is sure to be bewildered in discovering karma, vikarma, and akarma. This verse mentions the need to avoid independent work. So karma, Krishna explains, is, this is an inner meaning. External meaning of karma is do what scripture says. Inner meaning of karma is do what great devotee says. Do what Mahajans do. Do what Prabhupada did. Do what Mahajanayana Katha Sapantha. So this is how Prabhupada explains is karma, or must follow liberated souls and avoid independent work. Distinguish very carefully between the 3 subjects of Krishna says in the next verse. Be very careful to distinguish what is vikarma, what is karma, what is akarma. Seeing action in inaction and inaction in action. Okay, freedom, I will explain this. Freedom from reaction can result from proper action, and sinful reaction can result from improper renunciation. All right, once again, freedom from reaction can result from proper action. In other words, if Arjuna fights for the pleasure of Krishna, it's a proper action. Fighting for the pleasure of Krishna, not for selfish motive, then he can become free from reaction. Then he will not incur sinful reaction. This is called action. This is called inaction in action. Inaction means, basically inaction means here no sinful reaction. So inaction in action means no sinful reaction in karma. And that is fighting with transcendental knowledge, fighting for the sake of Krishna. This is called inaction in action. And then action in inaction, the word action means sinful reaction. Inaction means artificial renunciation. That is how it is explained. So basically, Krishna says it is very difficult to understand, and he says one should be able to understand what is action in inaction and what is inaction in action. Then he can become liberated.
Prabhuji, can you explain this, please?
Yeah, I will explain again. So Krishna says one should very scrutinizingly distinguish between karma, vikarma, and akarma. Then he says one should be able to see action in inaction and inaction in action. Then one will become liberated. So the first word, action or inaction, in both the statement, the first word means inaction means freedom from reaction, and action means having a sinful reaction. So, and the second word means karma or renunciation. So inaction in action means no sinful reaction from one's karma. This is called inaction in action. So when the karma is properly done, which is for the sake of Krishna, then there will be no sinful reaction. Example, if Arjuna fights on the battlefield, not for the gaining kingdom, but because Krishna wants him to do, he will not have to suffer for killing. This is called inaction in action. Because Arjuna's understanding of inaction is, I don't want to fight. His understanding of inaction is avoidance of duty. That way I will avoid sinful reaction. But Krishna explains, no, that will incur sinful reaction, avoidance of duty. And that is called action in inaction. So here action means you will incur sinful reaction. That's what action means. Inaction means through artificial renunciation. So again, sinful reaction can result from improper renunciation. Sinful reaction from improper renunciation because of avoidance of duty. That is action in action. And then freedom from reaction can result from proper action. That is inaction in action. Okay, does it make sense? Is everyone clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. All right. So then last 5 verses, Krishna elaborates on akarma, and then basically what are symptoms of akarma. So first Krishna is explaining karma through gyan, or basically Krishna is explaining the concept of karma. And he says what karma is. What is karma? Karma is the activities which is done according, not an independent action, but according to great devotees of the Lord, following the Mahajans, following the instruction of Prabhupada and Acharyas and Goswamis. Then that is proper karma or akarma. Then vikarma, Krishna just uses one word for vikarma, and he says it's forbidden action, or whatever scripture says don't do it, that's vikarma. And then he says it's very difficult to understand. Then he says, but one who can see action in action, in action, in action, in action, in action is a liberated soul. In other words, the summary, Arjuna, perform akarma. Do your duty in knowledge. Again, the theme is the same of this chapter, importance of transcendental knowledge and performing karma in transcendental knowledge. That is called inaction in action, where you have karma, but there is no reaction. So now there is a hidden question as per Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Krishna, can you explain? It's a little bit complex. I understood the concept of inaction and action. I understood there will be no reaction in proper action. So how do I understand if my action is proper? Or what are the symptoms? Just like second chapter, Arjuna asked, explain the symptoms by which a pure devotee sits, how he stands, how he walks, how he talks. and we discussed about what this question actually means, and the answer Krishna gave in the last part of second chapter. So similar thing, symptoms of a devotee performing akarma, and last 5 verses elaborate on those symptoms. So first, what is akarma? Pure devotional service, or everything we are doing is for the pleasure of Krishna, and everything we are doing is beyond the boundary of karma. We discussed last week about Nishkam Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, and in simple words we say Bhakti Yoga is akarma, or done for pleasure of Krishna beyond the boundaries of Varnashram. That is actually akarma. Like for example, another example of Nishkam Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga difference is Yudhishthira Maharaj didn't want to lie when Krishna says, tell him that Ashwatthama is dead. He didn't want to lie. So he was bound by his boundaries. But Arjuna was like, okay for anything. Arjuna was okay for anything. So this is like Bhakti Yoga, this is like pure akarma, done only for the pleasure of Krishna. Example of where Arjuna was okay for anything. Krishna, Karna was out of the chariot, and without a chariot. As per dharma, you cannot kill somebody not in chariot. Krishna said, shoot. Arjuna said, and kill Karna. But when Krishna told Yudhishthira Maharaj, tell him Ashwadhama is dead, he hesitated. He's like, I don't want to say that. So this is again a difference between Nishkam Karma Yoga. Everyone is doing for the pleasure of, but there is a boundary of dharma. So a karma is only done for the pleasure of Krishna, and when that is the situation, then no reaction. This is called inaction in action. Okay. Now this is a definition of a karma, and Krishna, there are various things that Krishna mentioned, these 5 verses. Devotees are recommended to understand what is karma, what is a karma, what is vikarma, according to Prabhupada purports, as we see in this presentation. And then when defining what is a karma, devotee should be able to understand or describe what are the symptoms of a karma, or elaborate on what is a karma. Just saying a karma is Bhakti Yoga is not sufficient, but we should be able to explain what is a karma that is described in these 5 verses. Every endeavor is devoid of personal motive. Like Arjuna was not fighting for kingdom, only for Krishna's pleasure. Even the motive of I should practice dharma is also a personal motive. Why? Because I am Dharmaraj. Like anything that holds us to do what Krishna wants is one is devoid of all such thoughts. Sometimes we do things, but then we do because it is right thing to do. Sometimes there is a contention between this is what devotees have asked me to do, and this is the right thing to do. And that's where it's a test for us in following spontaneous or vidhi. It's like, okay, what devotees want me to do and what my understanding is what is the right thing to do. And we practice it in our sadhaka stage to be able to practice it at siddha stage also. So every endeavor is devoid of personal motive, or every endeavor is done to please Krishna. There is no reaction in doing if it is done purely for the pleasure of Krishna. But we don't perform akarma really because generally speaking, we can see from these symptoms. Actually, Krishna distinguishes between akarma at a sadhaka stage and akarma at siddha stage. Akarma at sadhaka stage is like we are practicing devotional service, but it basically sakama, generally speaking. So pure akarma, there is no reaction, done only for the pleasure of Krishna, no attachment to results. Only thing that motivates pure akarma is I am doing this for pleasure of Krishna. So there is no depression or no exhilaration, no happiness or no distress, because I am trying to do whatever it takes for the pleasure of Krishna. always satisfied in success or failures. Otherwise, success comes pride, and failure comes depression. Why? Because the devotee is satisfied in doing things for the pleasure of Krishna. Acts only for bare necessities of life. Because excessive necessities or making excessive thing as necessity is part of personal motive also. No sense of proprietorship, freedom from duality. What is good, what is bad. Um, um, Gain or loss, success or failure, fame or infamy. These are all heat and cold. These are all different dualities, freedom from dualities, because success or failure, fame or infamy, other things. If I mean, we are not free from those things is because there is a personal bodily conception, and there is false ego, and there's personal desires, which takes us away from karma. But one of the symptoms of a karma is free from duality, free from envy. So these are the symptoms of a karma. Basically, we can say symptoms of pure devotional service, and all these things also apply. And why envy comes? Envy comes because I want to compete with others. And when I'm competing with others and they have something better than I have, then why they have and why I don't have. But freedom from envy, when it is actually, generally we do everything for our sake only. But when it is actually done for Krishna's sake, when Krishna in the center, then there is no feeling of competition. Then, oh, others are pleasing Krishna so much, others are serving so nicely, amazing. I'm able to do very little, others are able to do so much. Well, I'm trying to please Krishna in my way, others are trying to please Krishna in own way. Ultimately, everyone is trying to please Krishna, and together we are trying to give a lot of pleasure to Krishna. And it's like the whole team, the whole ISKCON team, working to give pleasure to Krishna. Everyone is trying to spread the message of Krishna consciousness. Everyone is trying to serve Krishna. Doesn't matter how they are serving and how I am serving, or how great others' contribution is, or how insignificant my contribution is. Competition and envy is not there, because ultimately it's a teamwork. Well, we are all together have this purpose of trying to serve Krishna. This devotee serve Krishna to this kind of situation, circumstances. Very nice. Krishna is getting served. Mission is getting spread. So when Krishna is in the center, then there is freedom from envy. When I comes in the center, then there is competition. Then obviously there is a personal motive that I want to be glorified. I want to become famous. I. And then there is envy. There is duality. There is success or failure, depression and pride. There is attachment to results. There is reaction, actually, because all these thoughts naturally we have to we eat what we cook, and if this is what we are cooking, this consciousness what we cook, then we have to eat the consequences of it. So our karma is a very advanced stage, and Krishna clearly defines what is karma. Well, first is independent work. Very interesting. Karma, Krishna describes dependent on the will of the Mahajans, follow the footsteps of Mahajans. And this is called a karma in sadhaka stage, where follow the footsteps of Mahajan. At one point of time, we can do independent work. Krishna says a karma, the work is independent. And in karma, it is dependent. So it's there is a lot more to it. It's beautifully explained in this section. This section is called Karma through Jnana. Then sure to attain spiritual kingdom, because does everything because of his full contribution to spiritual activities. Again, I would add, it's not just full contribution to spiritual activities, but full contribution to spiritual activities in Krishna consciousness, or in spiritual consciousness, not in I, me, my consciousness. Then it becomes, then one attains spiritual kingdom, and one is fully situated in transcendental knowledge. All these symptoms will happen if one is situated in transcendental knowledge of I am part and parcel of Krishna. And the purpose of my everything I do is to please Krishna. When Krishna is in the center, I am not in the center. When we are in complete transcendental knowledge, these symptoms will happen. Okay, so any question on this, or are we clear with the concept of akarma? Yes, Andanani Kishore Devi.
Just
Yes.
one quick question. So sadhaka stage and siddha stage, can you give little example, like how mature it become? And I understand, like, follow the footstep of Mahajan. We need to follow our spiritual guru masters in the sadhaka stage. I mean, I just a little confused here for siddha stage.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So sadhaka stage, Prabhuji, for us, I mean, I'm talking about most of us, those who are on Siddha stage, please pray for me. All of you in Sadhaka stage also, please pray for me. I need everyone's prayers. But anyways, Sadhaka stage, we follow the directions of Mahajans. We engage ourselves in spiritual activities, like whether it is we read, we serve in the temple, we share the message of Krishna consciousness with others, we chant the holy name. So our consciousness may not be for the pleasure of Krishna, but our activities follow a karma. So this is called akarma at sadhana stage. Akarma at siddha stage is with a spiritual consciousness, like what we were discussing, the true symptoms of akarma in siddha stage. Does it help, Prabhu? Himanshu Prabhu? No?
Yes, true symptom of karma is in the siddha stage, when
Is
you are
siddha stage.
transcendent stage.
Yeah. And when we are doing or practicing or performing Krishna conscious activities under guidance of great devotees, under guidance of proper instruction, not with a pure consciousness, it is still a karma at a sadhana stage. Clear?
Sure, Prabhu.
Yeah, okay. Any other question?
So, Prabhuji,
Dandat
is it-
Pranam. Go ahead, Mataji.
no, Mataji, you can go ahead.
Well, one of you go ahead. So, okay.
Hare
Anand and
Krishna,
Kishori Devi,
Prabhuji,
go ahead.
Dandavat Pranam.
One by one, I will ask to avoid confusion. Anand and Kishori Devi.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hmm.
Prabhuji, can we understand akarma as the words which Rupa Goswami says, Anya Binashita Punya, that stage?
Yes, very good. Yes, Mataji. Pure devotional service.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Harshini Mataji.
So I was just comparing Raganuga Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti. Like at Sadhaka stage, we follow Vaidhi Bhakti, but Raganuga Bhakti is like the form of pure devotional service, right? So can we relate that way also?
Well, it's not really the same. It's good. I mean, I use this word, but it's good not to see it from those perspectives. And more details you can ask me later because it's a different, elaborate subject matter. Is that
Yeah,
all?
okay, Prabhu.
But let's not
Yeah.
compare that. Let's compare, because Raganuga stage is still a sadhana bhakti. It is still not a perfected stage. It is still tinged by material desires. We can say prema bhakti is a karma stage. That's the right way to put it. All right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Padma Mataji.
In karma, we follow the Vedic literature, but we have the personal desires. Yes, Prabhuji. In a karma, no material desires, only Lord pleasure.
Yes.
That's, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on symptoms of akarma?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Anandani Priya.
So, Prabhuji, when we were discussing the Nishkam Karma Yoga, so in that there was a point realization of relationship with Krishna as eternal servitor. So, Prabhuji, when we realize a relationship with Krishna as a eternal servitor, so we do pure devotional service only, right? So it it's a little bit confusing with akarma and nishkam karma yoga. One point, Prabhuji.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So Nishkam Karma Yoga can be seen from the perspective of Bhakti Yoga, how Prabhupada presented. Nishkam Karma Yoga can also be presented without Bhakti Yoga. So, I mean, Nishkam Karma Yoga has many layers to it. That's why it's a little complex. So one way to beginning understand of Nishkam Karma Yoga is I'm doing my duty, I'm not attached to results, but there is no Krishna in the center. I have to take care of this. I have to do this. I mean, I think there are many examples in the past. They would do all their duties without Krishna in the center, without desire for personal gain. But they would do duty to their parents. Whatever they say, they do it. Like they give the words and they do it. As it is follow without attachment. It's one aspect of Nishkam Karmi Yoga. Another aspect of Nishkam Karmi Yoga is done in Bhakti. We discussed example of Bhishma Dev. He was doing everything for pleasure of Krishna, but he was still bound by karma. This is little complex because when we say Gyan Yoga is above Nishkam Karmi Yoga, is when we extend the yoga ladder, it is okay to explain Nishkam Karmi Yoga without Bhakti Yoga and say um, um, duty with attachment, duty without attachment. And when duty is done without attachment, so I'm doing my duty. Why you're doing your duty? Well, it is my duty. Are you attached to wealth for earning? Not really. Do you want to enjoy some benefits from that? Not really. You want some name or fame? Not really. So then what is the purpose of everything that you do? If you don't want anything, what is the purpose? Then one comes to the point of, well, there is something more, that I'm not this body, I'm spirit, soul, and then comes Gyan and Ashtanga, and finally comes Bhakti. That's when the yoga ladder stage, Gyan is above Nishkam. And then Ashtanga is above Gyan because there is Paramatma realization, Brahman realization, Paramatma, Bhagwan realization. Nishkam, no realization, no absolute truth. In like strict definition of Nishkam. Then above no absolute truth, there is Brahman, there is Paramatma, there is Bhagwan. So there is Gyan, there is Ashtanga, and there is Bhakti. So this is the yoga ladder that we explain. But then Nishkam Karma Yoga can be almost at par with Bhakti Yoga also, when the same karma is done for the pleasure of Krishna. So what you said, we are done a servant of Krishna, that is Nishkam Karma Yoga in line with Bhakti Yoga. So there are various ways we can see this Nishkam Karma Yoga. Does that answer?
Oh yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. It was always a doubt. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, anything else clear? Second last section for today. Okay, then sacrifices that lead to transcendental knowledge. Again, the last one we saw here is one who performs a karma is fully situated in transcendental knowledge. Now Krishna explains how to gain transcendental knowledge, and he said there are various sacrifices. And then Krishna describes here the goal. Varieties of sacrifices are described in these 9 verses because these sacrifices have transcendental knowledge as the ultimate goal. The purpose of these sacrifices is controlling the senses. This purifies one of all sins and makes one happy. Why one performs sinful activity is because of sin, because of uncontrolled senses. And sinful activity gives misery, brings the reaction. So sacrifice is done to control the senses, to learn to control the senses. There is sacrifice for brahmachari, for grihastha, for yogis, even the charity we will see next slide describes all kinds of sacrifices. Purposes, we do something for a higher pleasure, which may not necessarily be for pleasing Krishna, which can be with Brahman in the like the goal may be Brahman, the goal may be just selfless work, whatever it is. Different people are at different level of realization, different modes. So the Vedic literatures describe the concept of sacrifices. Krishna says without sacrifice one cannot be happy in this life or the next life. But based on one's modes, one's varna and ashrama, one's realization and spiritual knowledge, different sacrifices are described. The purpose of all of them is one more stage to control the senses, avoid sinful reactions, become happy, gain transcendental knowledge. Eventually, all the sacrifices eventually brings us to devotional service. The purpose of transcendental knowledge is devotional service. Not all sacrifices is bhakti yoga, but they are still recommended. And Krishna says one should perform sacrifices, and then Krishna culminates the sacrifice and says this is how you can get the actual benefit. So that's why this section is called Sacrifice Leads to Devotional Service. Goal 1, control the senses. When control the senses, no sins, then one becomes happy, gain transcendental knowledge and devotional service. Why varieties of sacrifices? Different types are appropriate for different types of workers according to one's position in one ashram and their level of realization. Various sacrifices are defined. What are those various sacrifices? Demigod worship, sacrifices into Brahman, hearing process, and senses in the fire of mental control. In other words, for brahmacharis, hear about, for us, basically, in SCON or Vaishnavism, hear about Krishna. It's also called Swadhyay. Swadhyay means knowledge, gaining. This is one of the sacrifice for brahmacharis. Hearing process and sense control. Senses in the fire of mental control. Control the mind, which comes through sense control. This is the recommended sacrifice. Then for regulated grahasthas, object of senses in the fire of senses, they can accept the object of senses. They can basically, it's a sacrifice. So it's the way it is said is object of sacrifice in the fire of sacrifice, or object ki ahuti dena in the senses, or allowing the senses to engage in sense object in a regulated manner. That is allowed in Grihastha ashram. Ashtanga yoga, again, control of the senses and spiritual realization. There, Krishna also explains outgoing breath into inward breath, and various Ashtanga yoga terms are used, giving charity selflessly, austerity, study of scripture, Swadhyaya Yagya, Upanishad and Vedanta Sutras or Sankhya philosophy, Hatha Yoga, Pranayam, and these are all, Krishna says, they are approved by Vedas. Anybody who is doing either Ashtanga or reading Upanishad and Sutras or doing Pranayam or Hatha Yoga or charity or Brahman or demigod worship, everything is coming from Vedas. So we cannot criticize them as, yes, this is not the highest form of sacrifice, but the purpose of all the sacrifice is to gain control over senses, avoid sinful reactions, become happy, eventually gain transcendental knowledge. Then after describing various, like 5 verses Krishna takes to describe all different kinds of sacrifices, and then he says, then he summarizes and he says that there is a common purpose. All the sacrifices that culminate in transcendental knowledge. And that's why this chapter is centered around transcendental knowledge. Common aim to control the senses. Sense gratification is the root cause of material existence. Freedom from sinful reaction. When senses are controlled, we won't incur sinful reaction or sinful activities. Ultimately, they culminate in knowledge. Krishna also says sacrifice in knowledge is higher than just the sacrifice. Like charity in knowledge is higher than just the act of charity. Ultimately, everything culminates in transcendental knowledge and gradually devotional service. Charity, austerity, they are not ultimately, or they're not devotional service, but not everyone is at that level. So Prabhupada uses the word, or Krishna says, gradually come to devotional service. And Krishna says one who does not perform sacrifice cannot be happy in this life or the next because of uncontrolled senses. One tastes the nectar, and if one performs the act of sacrifice, one is happy in this life and the next. Okay, so that was then, after all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifice of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So are we good with this section, which is sacrifice, all the sacrifice? Krishna explains the purpose of all the sacrifice culminates transcendental knowledge. There's a theme of the chapter, transcendental knowledge. Why so many kinds of sacrifice? What are the various kinds of sacrifices? And what is the common goal of all the sacrifice is to control the senses, no sense, become happy in this life and next life, gain transcendental knowledge, and gradually come to devotional service. Any question on this section? The sacrifices, 4th section.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a question, Prabhuji. So if sacrifices are performed without the actual understanding that they are to be performed to control the senses, just for superficially performing those sacrifices or austerities, uh, should those things be corrected, or how should we approach that?
Prabhuji, Krishna says sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than sacrifice without knowledge, or the act of sacrifice. He specifically used the word in knowledge is better than the act of sacrifice. But still, if they are coming from Vedas, it is all right. Now, there is, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. So which level we are talking about? But it's okay. They themselves will help control the senses, because suppose charity, now it loosens the attachment, or whatever it is, even demigod worship, then we are accepting somebody as higher than me. I'm not capable of getting anything by myself. I need help. So basically I'm helpless. So there are always, I'm not the doer thing is there in demigod worship. So some or the other benefit is there in all kind of sacrifices.
Okay. Ultimately, obviously, bhakti is the Prabhupada elevator, but other processes also elevate, though, at a slower pace or whatever.
Yeah, Krishna says ultimately the goal of all this sacrifice is to gain transcendental knowledge and gradually come to devotional service. Bhagavad Gita brings all sort of people, whether it is Ashtangi, Brahman realization, looking for Paramatma, Sankhya, philosophers, tapasvis, danis. Krishna brings any bucket you lie in, you have to surrender to me.
Right. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there is one chat. It says, can you explain the second Brahman? Oh, Brahman is there are various people, they worship God as Brahman. And basically they do mental speculation, Gyanis they are called. So this is one of the path people take. It's a sacrifice. Ultimately, the purpose of that sacrifice is also to gain transcendental knowledge and eventually come to the point of surrender to Krishna. But it is allowed in scriptures. Brahmavadis are there. Brahman is a reality. Mayavad is an illusion. Is it all right? Who asked the question in a chat?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we go to the last section and we'll end with this section. I think this is the last slide for today. Conclusion, transcendental knowledge. This is the most important section also, where Krishna says that the purpose of all the sacrifices that it culminates in transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge and its result in liberation is only possible by faithful, sincere inquiry and service at the feet of spiritual master. If somebody asks you what is the entire essence of fourth chapter, there are two main things, take home message or most important topics of this chapter. One is a karma yoga. What is a karma? Detailed understanding of those. One is why Krishna appears and the history of Bhagavad Gita. And one is the need of a spiritual master. So these are this section, a karma, and the first section are very important in this chapter. Transcendental knowledge and its resultant liberation, like then tadvidi pranipatena, you humbly inquire, you render service at the feet of spiritual master. And the goal of all the sacrifice culminates in transcendental knowledge. Krishna says, instead of doing all the sacrifice, you do one sacrifice, is you surrender to a guru. You accept a spiritual master, you hear from guru. When the purpose of all the sacrifice is to gain transcendental knowledge, then Prabhupada uses the word, just try to approach a spiritual master. Which is like, yeah, there are all these things recommended, but what do we do? Just try to approach a spiritual master. Have guru in your life. And then Do I still need to do all these sacrifices? Well, they will come to you naturally. You will naturally, because it's like, one is I take steps, or one is I take the highest thing. And then these things are inbuilt in everything. Just like all the yogas are there in Bhakti Yoga. All the rasas are there in Madhurya Ras. Likewise, all these sacrifices are there in all these sacrifices are there in surrendering to spiritual master. But then it should be pariprashna, should not be challenging mood. It should be humble inquiry and the service of spiritual master. Prabhupada says, he says, one who have quoting, I don't remember which scripture Prabhupada quote, but one who has unflinching faith in the orders of Guru and Krishna, all the transcendental knowledge is revealed to him automatically. Then last section Krishna explains what is the effect of transcendental knowledge thus attained from spiritual master. What happens when we gain knowledge from spiritual master? Do we become self-realized? No, we don't become self-realized. When we gain knowledge, we have to realize it by practice of devotional service. Krishna says gradually by practice of devotional service, whatever we hear from spiritual master becomes established within our heart. It's not an instantaneous thing. Knowledge, there is difference between knowledge received and acting in transcendental knowledge. In other words, when we gain this transcendental knowledge from spiritual master, when we practice devotional service, we will naturally come to the path of akarma yoga. We cannot do it right away, but guru and seva and practice of devotional service or instruction received by guru over a period of time, then we can come to practice akarma yoga and we will go back to Godhead. And what are the symptoms? What happens when we actually apply? Like you receive instruction from guru about bhakti yoga, you practice bhakti yoga over a period of time, and then you will see these symptoms in you. When you see the below symptoms in you, that is a proof that you have received transcendental knowledge. And what are those? Realization that all living entities are part of the Supreme. You will see Krishna in the heart of all living entities. With such vision, one will never fall into illusion, because we fall into illusion because we see from bodily perspective. But when you see everyone is a part and parcel of the Lord, and Krishna sitting in the heart of living entity, there is no fall into illusion. By that knowledge, you will cross over the ocean of miseries, even if you are the most sinful. No matter what is your past, once you start seeing Krishna in the heart of all living entity and every part and parcel of Krishna, you will go beyond threefold miseries. One burns all sinful reaction, whatever one's past is. One achieves self-realization, finally gets pure devotional service. So it may be an important question. What is the effect of receiving transcendental knowledge from spiritual master? For that, refer verses 435 to 438. 4 verses on the effect of receiving knowledge from spiritual master when we have realized those. Finally, Krishna ends with saying faithless cannot attain self-realization. And if doubt comes, the last verse comes, if doubt arises, defeat that doubt by the weapon of knowledge. Use your own intelligence to defeat your own doubts. And so Arjuna, stand and fight. Okay, so that's the end of the 4th chapter. Now, any last discussion? Otherwise, we are good for today.
Prabhuji,
Krishna. Please go ahead, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Prabhuji, you said right, like the conclusion of the 4th chapter is approaching a spiritual master, rendering service unto him, and surrendering unto spiritual master. So, before we discuss the activities like akarma, sacrifice, so all those activities ultimately we do to gain transcendental knowledge. Right? So, if we approach a spiritual master and render service, all these activities will be covered. Is that a correct understanding, or
I mean, we will, if somebody surrender to spiritual master, gain the knowledge by the practice of devotional service, realize the transcendental knowledge, one will become charitable, one will become austere, one have realized Brahman already, because Bhagwan realization contains Paramatma and Brahman realization. I mean, one don't worship the demigods, but one worship the demigods because all demigods reside in body of Guru. One has full control over the senses. One has perfected the hearing process. Or yeah, Ashtanga Yoga, we don't practice Ashtanga Yoga, but one has realized the goal of Ashtanga Yoga. In other words, there is no need of all these things if you have approach spiritual master, practice devotional service, and realize. That's the essence of this chapter. Get there, through that attain karma yoga, but not everyone is so advanced and realize that one can surrender to Guru. I mean, one receives Guru after many lifetimes. So there are all these sacrifices Krishna also mentions. Okay, does that answer?
Okay, Prabhuji. So I understood, like, yeah, definitely. Once you approach a spiritual master and once you follow the instructions, all these qualities like charity and everything will be covered, and that's how we can see that, okay, whatever is we are trying to do to gain the transcendental knowledge will be done by approaching a spiritual master. And Roji, what about the akarma concept? Like, how that thing will be covered if we approach a spiritual master or
Well, akarma is pure devotional service, right, Mataji? And if we
yes.
take instruction from Guru, practice, naturally we'll become purified. And then we do everything for the pleasure of the Lord, and that's a karma.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Shweta Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Done.
People who are in Nishkama Karma Yoga, whatever they perform is akarma. Is that correct, Prabhuji?
Not necessarily. Nishkam Karmi Yoga, again, as I mentioned, we can differentiate it, we can connect it to bhakti, or we may not connect it to bhakti. And a karma is even beyond Nishkam Karmi Yoga, there is no boundaries of karma there. It's like everything for the pleasure of Krishna. But in general terms, Nishkam Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga can go in par. I think I created a lot of confusion on this topic. There's a lot of...
Prabhuji, if Nishkam...
Yeah.
Prabhuji, but when Nishkam Karma Yoga is not duty bound, correct? It's only Krishna is around the center.
Not necessary, Prabhuji.
No, but there are two aspects you mentioned, correct? It can be duty bound. It can be, Krishna can be, or, Guru can be in center. You are following the instruction of Guru and following the instruction of the Guru, spiritual master, and doing the Nishkam Karma Yoga. That is kind of similar to a karma in the sadhaka stage, correct?
Yeah, Nishkam Karma Yoga can be at par with Bhakti Yoga because the term Nishkam is there. So there is no desire. So only for the desire of Krishna. So then they can be at par also. Yes.
But in our Krishna consciousness, Prabhuji, then what we will say, like when we are doing the devotional service as a sadhu, like, as a neophyte or sadhaka stage, then it is a karma we are doing, or we are doing Nishkam Karma, because we have a tinge of, material.
Yeah, we discussed about a karma at the stage of sadhaka, which is following under the guidance of Shri Guru. So we are still doing a karma, stage of sadhaka. It's not pure a karma. But these are devotional activities. Gradually we will come to the platform of pure karma, pure devotional service.
So we will say, like, this is a karma with the mix of, not pure karma also, correct?
Yes. Actually, Bhagavad Gita is a very high book. Bhagavad Gita doesn't speak anything other than pure devotional service in general. The principle of a karma, everywhere Krishna says quality of a devotee, surrender unto me. That's why the book is like about pure devotional service. But we gradually attain that stage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shweta Mata, your question was answered?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
So
Prabhuji.
it's 9:30. If everyone is okay, we'll end here. Thank you all for joining. If I spoke anything wrong, please forgive me as a humble servant. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। धन्यवाद, प्रणाम, हरे कृष्ण।
Krishna
Dandavat
Prabhuji.
pranam Prabhuji. Hare Krishna
Dandavat
Prabhuji.
pranam
Krishna
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.